Hello. So anyways, this is either the crescendo or the anticlimax of the conference. So welcome. In this talk, I intend to explore the relationship between two distinct registers of understanding, map connoisseurship and cartographic theory, both of which are of critical importance to understanding cartography as a body of knowledge, of informed practice, just to be clear, when I speak about registers of understanding, I'm talking about logical, positional views of a complex conceptual entity. Registers facilitate rigorous, orthographically focused conceptual analysis, analyses uncorrupted by extraneous factors that do not pertain to that register. Full understanding of the entity, however, involves multiple registers and an understanding of how the various registers interrelate. I have, over the years, identified numerous sets of registers for interrogating cartography: cognitive, semiotic, artistic, craft and theory, graphic, geographic, cartographic, and form and matter, to name a few. We can identify many such registers, but today I'm speaking about these two. Now, cartographic theory frames our understanding of what maps are and how we know about them. Theory operates at a level so general that individual maps cannot be inferred from it, but it must support the maphood of every map. No map exists without a theory, and without theory, we don't know what maps are. Map connoisseurship, on the other hand, tells us about a map or a group of maps. It involves contingent knowledge about maps and their use and how and why they are made, about style and about taste. Connoisseurship tells us why map types exist, how a given map relates to other maps, and it tells us about good maps. Neither theory nor connoisseurship touches upon ethical concerns. Maps don't have ethics. People do. And even repugnant people with despicable intentions can make great maps. Now, abstract theory allows maps to exist in all their bewildering variety, and it divides the map from the not map. Now, your theory may be limited. But even limited or ill-founded theories are not useless or inoperative. Connoisseurship, by contrast, is situated in theory, in history, and in culture, and it is embodied through criticism. Thus, while theory underpins practice, connoisseurship dwells within it. Because of this contingent grounding, it is clear that, as Miss Oates tells us, there can be no criticism for all time, or even for much time. Theory does not reckon value. It instead provides us with a way of identifying things to which it is appropriate to apply valuing criteria and tests. No map is any more of a map than any other map. Connoisseurship, on the other hand, is all about value. Some maps are better than other maps, and it is connoisseurship that tells us how and why. And as we can see, the theory and connoisseurship registers are complementary, and a dialogue between the two is essential for finding a complete, comprehensive view of the field as a whole. Unfortunately, almost everyone writing on cartography will, at some point, conflate theory with connoisseurship. Their theories orbit around what they like to speak of as real maps, what they see of as good maps, and the maps of which they approve. In this way, their so-called theories are only really map criticism. Now, this is not to say that map criticism is bad or unimportant. Indeed, it is sophisticated criticism that helps us move beyond the surface details of any cultural artifact and to uncover the complex and interconnected elements that inflect them. However, when criticism drives and frames theory, the result is simply ideology. And as Homi Bhabha remarked, ideology is what we think we see without really looking. Connoisseurship, by contrast, is about really looking. Because theory operates in the abstract, it serves as a starting point and a center around which connoisseurship can pivot. In my latest CP article about telling a map from something that's not, I focused exclusively on theory because at that stage one has nothing else to go on except what one thinks maps are. Connoisseurship cannot even begin to operate until and unless we've decided, for whatever reason, that something is a map. Obviously, things don't end there, but it is where they start. And thus, the map, not map inflection constitutes an edge case that always pertains when we are picking out a map from amongst the general run of stuff we wade through every day. So, how am I defining theory? For some people, theory means only legitimate theory, a rarefied thing that is only truly understood by and engaged by philosophic elites. Many mapping theorists fall into this camp. I, however, maintain that theory must be understood pragmatically. I see theory as a general term for what and how much each individual knows about maps, and however much or however little that person may know. If you know that maps exist, it's a part of your theory, maybe even all of it. If you think you can use a map, that's part of your theory. The purpose of pragmatic theory is not to provide a true picture of the world, but to help us to act more effectively within it. Pragmatic theory recognizes that any map reader may hold almost any ideas about maps, and any truly valid theory has to allow that to be so. Your theory need not be logically consistent. It need not be philosophically complete. It may, in fact, be utter stuff and nonsense. Consider, for example, Jared Fremlin's homologue theory or the writings of the object ontology people. But nonetheless, whatever theory you hold, it is the way you understand maps. Your theories about maps define a framework through... Your theories about maps... through which you operate as a connoisseur. In every map reader, in this sense, is a connoisseur. Bernard Berenson defined connoisseurship as the comparison of works with a view to determining their reciprocal relationships. It proceeds by the isolation of the characteristics of the known and their confrontation with the unknown. The sense of quality, he maintained, is indubitably the most essential equipment of a would-be connoisseur. It is the touchstone of all the evidences of all the possible morphological tests he may be able to bring to bear upon the work. The connoisseur draws attention to significant aspects of the works in question, draws parallels and contrasts, and identifies relationships. The connoisseur then is primarily concerned with how good the work is, and their analysis takes into view both the single isolated work and the horizon against which it is situated. This is because, as the artist David Batchelor pointed out, works acquire meaning by being placed in a relationship of difference with related antecedent works. Thus, the task of a connoisseur is to place works in relationships that enrich a work's meaning for themselves and for others. However, we must also remember that connoisseurship is always situated, that it occurs inside the context of theory. It always takes place, as Christine Battersby wrote, in the context of certain evoked traditions, which bring along with them standards for discriminating particular qualities and features. One role of the erudite connoisseur lies in introducing us to the complex, challenging, little-known or obscure works and elevating and deepening our understanding, and recognized connoisseurs are usually heard with attention. This is not to say that legitimate judgment comes only from authority. In fact, every one of us, enabled and constrained as we are by our education and experience, has the final word for our own understanding. We each reach that understanding by drawing upon our full intellectual experience, not only on received knowledge, but also on connections, analogies, and interpretations we each cook up on our own. That final word caveat notwithstanding, however, we are ourselves judged by the values others place on our judgments. As Richard Rorty remarked, truth is what your contemporaries let you get away with saying. This is important I've spoken quite a bit about individual agency in establishing both personal map theory and connoisseurship, but we cannot lose sight of the fact that all of our understandings are rooted in the frameworks bequeathed to us by our cultural communities. We recognize maps because we have learned how to recognize them. We can tell a good map from a less good map because we have learned how to tell them apart. Our understanding is not solely imposed from above, but it behooves us to be accommodating of the predilections of our contemporaries and of our forebears, and to leverage those predilections to recognize, make, and read maps. As Timothy Leary said, increasing illumination and understanding is a team sport. I've been saying that theory and connoisseurship are complementary registers for understanding cartography. Theory is the foundation, while criticism and connoisseurship build upon it. We need both registers, but if we muddle them, we will end up like the ingenious architect described by Jonathan Swift, who built houses by beginning at the roof and working to the foundation. Our initial map theory frameworks are inherited from our interpretive communities, but each of us ultimately has to figure these things out on our own. Every one of us passes our own judgments on both the maphood and the value of those things we have decided, for whatever reason, are maps. We can only see what theory allows us to see, and map criticism tells us as much about the critic as it does about the map. This dynamic situation must be recognized and accommodated in any sound philosophy of maps. Far from implying there is only one definition for mapness or for map value, this pragmatic approach instead allows for tremendous variety we see in concept, character, and value of maps. The ramifications of this are clear. Trying to define theory on criticism is only ideology, and ideological theories are not broadly applicable. This circumstance has misled writers whose own theories are ideological to complain that no theories are broadly applicable. Similarly, demagogues who insist that all mapping is, for example, hegemonic or processual, also fall into the trap of mistaking ideology for sound theory by mistaking their analytic register for a synoptic view. The question left unanswered, of course, is if your map theory is sound. It might be, if it agrees with the many other things we know about human communication, and it's shocking how many of these ideological theories demand some sort of magical map communication. And two, it explains all maps, whether you fancy them or not. So the term ring fencing has been bandied about recently. The fact is that everyone ring fences. And if you can tell a map from something that is not, then you are ring fencing both in and out. I maintain that sound theory does not call on criticism to build that fence. And that's the end.
It is exactly 5:20, and given your 15-minute slot, we have time for a couple questions if people are willing to stick around for a minute or so. Are there any questions?
Mark, you care a lot about what is a map and what is not a map. Can you explain why?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm being accused of caring a lot about what is a map and what is not a map. I don't know, do you somehow, if you can't tell a ham sandwich from a map, and you're eating lunch in a map library, I think the librarian's going to be a little peeved with you. But yeah, that's the first thing you've got to decide. Now, there are a lot of things that a lot of people say that this is not a map, that is not a diagram, that can't be a map. People in the past have said that, Marshall Island stick charts are not maps, or Dennis Wood said maps drawn in the snow or on sand are not maps. And but there are people that use them and make them and benefit from them and do all the performative things with them that are maps. Why in the heck are they maps? And how is it that you're deciding that they are or not maps? And so it's a broad question, and it's very flexible, but it's also the first one you have to answer. You don't go asking ham sandwiches questions about how to get to the post office. And you know that, and this is, so I'm trying to investigate. This is why in my article I was suggesting that we employ the processes and tactics invoked by conceptual art since the late 60s and 70s. That's where they were. The first thing about any conceptual artwork is that it challenges you to see it as a work of art. And the fact is that you don't have to, but it's going to challenge you, and it's going to stand in front of you and demand that you make that decision. So, and maps are doing that too, only they're a little more retiring. You can turn your back and walk away. You can wrap fish in them. You can do all kinds of things. But it's the first decision you're going to have to make if you're going to pick up a map and apply a map use or ask it a map question or anything like that. Does that answer your question? It seems so.